So I thought you might like to start off the evening with some sex. I'll just give you the background. This story is called Camilla's Price. It's about a 20-year-old Polish girl who is posing as a Russian girl who's living in Dubai, and she's lost her job and she hasn't got any money. And she's staying with a guy, another Polish person, a Polish air steward called Andrzej, who does some part-time pimping. And he's suggesting that she goes on the game to help support herself, basically. But she's had a good Christian upbringing. She's Catholic, and she's a virgin actually. And she has gone to this bar to pick somebody up, and she met this English guy, an older English guy, who was interested in her, but she didn't really have the nerve to really pick him up and come to terms. But what's happened is, we're sort of near the end of the story here, in the middle anyway. She's been sexually harassed by an Arab guy, and Colin, the English guy, has just sort of saved her from that and offered her a lift home. So that's where we are now. They're outside her apartment in his car. You want to come in? It isn't me saying this, she thought. It's just my role. She's been an actress in Poland, I should say. He beamed like a boy. Sure. They got out and he followed her inside. Maybe he'll take the initiative, she thought. As usual, the flat smelled of vodka and cigarettes, stale pizza and sex. A dazzle of electric light off whitewashed walls revealed the living room, a smoked glass table, a stereo system and a white leather sofa. Tropical fish pulsed and pirouetted in Andrzej's aquarium. She led Colin into the guest room, ashamed of her own made bed, the black stockings and bra hanging over a kitchen chair, the full ashtrays, and the photo of her parents in a cheap frame. She pushed the porn videos she'd borrowed from Andrzej, her sex education classes, he'd joked, behind the cheap Chinese TV with its built-in VCR. Sit down, I will make tea. Colin perched on the edge of the Arab bed that Andrzej had bought for its delicious vulgarity. Painted white and carved with elaborate curlicues, it had red lights and crimson velvet hearts on the headboard. Colin's feet dangled above the floor as she busied herself with the electric kettle on the gilt dressing table. In the mirror, she saw him untying his shoelaces. Don't take off your shoes. As long as he kept them on, she would be in control. He looked embarrassed and swung his feet like a child. I'll help you. No, stay there. He came up behind her as if he hadn't heard, and then his hands were on her hips as she dropped tea bags into airline mugs. The kettle hissed. His cheek touched her hair. His nose rubbed her ear. She felt the lobe taken gently between his teeth. She didn't turn. The spout began to steam. His hand spread over her belly, still outside her top. He nuzzled her neck, and the water boiled and his chest closed against her back. As she poured, she felt the vertical rod through his thin chinos and her skirt. Sugar? She asked. Half a spoon. His hands wriggled under the lame top, stroking the cold, fishy skin of her belly. Stop him, she thought, or name a price. You can do this. It's only another roll. He squeezed her breasts. Her nipples stiffened, but surely that was a reflex. Milk? A drop? She poured. He nibbled. She stirred. Her skirt zipper descended with tantalizing slowness. She couldn't turn. While his fingers furrowed her nether hair, she raised her mug, surprised that she was wet. It had happened when Jacek had petted her, but she'd felt guilty and angry with him, and she didn't feel that way now. It was confusing. She gulped the scalding tea, then twisted round and handed Colin his mug. He accepted his drink with his left hand, because the other one was still netted in her knickers. Looking dazed, he took a sip, withdrawing his right hand and curling its fingers round the handle of the mug, She smelt the fragrance of her own juices, as well as the tea. Kicking off his shoes, Colin dropped onto the bed. She sat on the clothes chair. "Come here," he said, in a newly authoritative voice that she found appealing. She obeyed, abandoning the mug. He put his on the floor too. His arm crooked round her and they fell back on the bed in a tangle of limbs, his tongue probing her face. She kept her mouth shut and her eyes open. The chinos slithered off his legs. She watched without resistance while her skirt and knickers were pulled down. He removed his polo shirt and his chest was broad and brown and hairy. He sat up, tongue tipped between his teeth, a caricature of childish concentration as he began to fit a condom on his penis. Suddenly she was on her feet. "Want to watch a video?" "You what?" "You saw Blue already?" "What's that, one of those porno flicks?" "No, it's an art film by Kieslowski, a Polish director. You want to see?" "Not really, Sonia, to be honest." "No? It's good." The traffic droned outside. Naked from the waist down, she felt defenseless. "All right, I don't mind," he said with a resigned tone. "Put it on." She inserted the cassette and returned self-consciously to the bed. Colin made a show of watching for a couple of minutes before trying to slip his tongue between her lips. She was watching two films now. The actress on the bed, Camilla surmised, could still stop the man if she was determined. On screen, after the death of her husband and son in a car crash, Juliette Binoche scraped her knuckles along a brick wall, ripping off the skin, biting her lower lip. Camilla winced at the physical pain, but understood. It was preferable to the other suffering. Colin pulled off her top, unhooked her bra, parted her legs. She closed her eyes and fell in a giddy spiral, holding her breath, his chest closing in. She sensed it, then felt it, and the tip of his penis was just tickling her when the front door buzzer bleated, making her flinch and freeze. "Who's that?" Colin said, bent above her like a notched bow. Couldn't be Andrzej. He had a key and it was still early, only midnight. "No one," she answered. "They'll go away." She jumped to her feet and turned up the volume on the TV. The knocking at the door persisted, and it seemed to unnerve Colin. When she settled beside him again, his penis looked like a soft sausage in a crinkled skin. He turned on his side, one leg over hers. The buzzing ceased and she relaxed. There was a rubbery smack as Colin tore off the condom. Tired and depressed, she drifted into a light slumber, hoping he would sleep too. She awoke with his hand skating over her haunches. She had turned in her sleep. His tongue flicked her backbone. He knelt astride her, licking the down at the nape of her neck. She heard panting. It was the scene where the widow in the film had sex with a near stranger as a release from grief and loneliness. The bar between Camilla's buttocks levered down and she found her legs opening, felt herself pushing against him. As he slid in, she guessed it was bare flesh but no longer cared. He was gentle, and it didn't hurt as much as she expected. After a few seconds, he turned her over, saying he wanted to see her face. In movies, the rhythm was usually prestissimo from the start, and sex was somewhat bestial, so she was taken aback by Colin's leisurely andante and the tender look in his eyes. She was almost able to imagine that he was in love with her. She caught herself whimpering. Then the bell went off again. "Oh, bugger! Shall I stop?" Colin asked. "It's all right, go on." Colin sank back into her as renewed blows fell in a flurry on the front door. Camilla felt herself being thrust forward and up, as if she were riding a wave, while the drumming grew harder and heavier, vivace, allegro, presto, and the bell bleated again and again, insistently, and then the wave broke. Colin's body convulsed as if he'd been electrocuted. She heard Andrzej's voice outside above the violins on the TV. "1 minute." She shimmied out from under Colin, flung on a bathrobe and ran to the front door. There stood Andrzej with his big 1970s square spectacles and his stubble. Two tall Somali women draped around him, both of them in skin-tight trousers and crop tops. He could be moody, but fortunately he was grinning. "Dobry wieczór," he said, greeting her with ironic formality. "Cześć," she answered. I knew you were in because I remembered I put the lights out, he continued in Polish. I left my key here. The trio sauntered in, laughing as if they were having the time of their lives. Camilla was already on her way to her bedroom, but Andrzej called her back, took her hand, and kissed it with exaggerated Polish politesse. Well done, he said knowingly. So now you will be able to pay a little rent, eh? She contrived to smile. Be careful, Andrzej. These African girls don't make the Arabs wear condoms. You told me yourself. I die in 5 years or 50 years. What's the difference? She was about to argue when she recalled that she had just done exactly what she was warning him against. He slapped her bottom, which in her present situation she had to tolerate, and turned away as he offered the girls a drink. Back in the bedroom, Colin was dressing. It's okay, she told him. It's just my friend. She put her arms around him as if he were a real boyfriend. Poor Jacek had said he'd wait the 2 years for her. If only she had listened to her parents and stayed to marry him. She would never be able to face Jacek after this. Colin held her a moment, then slipped on his deck shoes and patted his trousers to check for wallet and keys. I'd better be going. Colin, she began, using his name for the first time. When I was little, I dreamed I would be a great ballet dancer. Did you ever have a dream like that? Not of becoming a ballet dancer, no, he chuckled. I wanted to be an explorer. It's the same, you see, beautiful, noble dreams. And what do we do with our lives? What are we doing in this fucking place where money and pleasure are everything? It's not much different in England. In Poland too, she said, forgetting she was supposed to be Russian. But here it's worse. Can't we escape? I don't know. I'm 47, past my best. But you might still do something with your life. Why don't you go back to Russia? It's not so easy, I told you. I don't have the balance. Oh, low on the dosh, are you? He fumbled in his pocket. I could help you a bit. This was her chance. No, it's all right. I mean it. I won't miss it. From Andrzej's room came the pile-driving thump of techno music. In spite of Colin's tact, if she took the money, she would feel sullied. Colin reddened like a schoolboy. I don't know how much. Would 500 be all right? No, go. I haven't offended you, have I? No, but please go. She turned away from him. He pecked her cheek and walked out. Thank God, she murmured as he closed the door. Kurda, kurda, kurda. Shit, shit, shit. It was only after he'd gone, as she paced up and down, cursing herself for not taking the money, and suddenly frantic, sure she was pregnant or had contracted AIDS, that she saw what had pushed under the photograph of her parents, a 500 dirham note. Thank you.